Hello. Okay, so just got done with a failed stream there. The audio problem. Sorry about that. Anyways, I'll be reviewing a conversation between Mia Hughes and Nick. Nick frames it as a street epistemology conversation. He gave this whole little intro. I'm going to skip it this time, just because I've already heard it, and it was rather lengthy. They had a very lengthy rapport building before the conversation, which is great. Don't get me wrong, that's great. But yeah, we're gonna skip this time. I just wanted to make a few comments about it, just for Nick's sake, and just for some advice and feedback. He did this whole build up to the conversation, just like a monologue, and I mean it was well done, well spoken, but it was kind of like almost like an Anthony Magnabosco debrief at the end, except for it was at the beginning. Um, but I didn't quite like the framing of it, the framing as of Mia as like being incorrect or wrong. Um, Not that he can't say that. He can say that all he'd like, and that's fine. It might not be congruent, or at least like might not be in the spirit of street epistemology. Maybe I'm not sure exactly how what word to use, but it doesn't seem like a street epistemology thing to do. Anyways, I just wanted to say that before we got started. If you want to hear that intro, the link to the original video audio is in the description. But anyways, let's get started.
I mean, we could have a more free-form conversation where we'll get to something if you're not sure what to say, but like
No, 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 I can choose. You want me to, I mean, is there anything off limits? Can
no,
I say anything? I mean,
you could,
Pierce,
yeah.
or I did a live stream with him. Did you hear about that?
I did. I didn't. I listened to a little bit of it, or I watched a little bit of it, but not a lot.
There's been some backlash, of course,
Okay.
just, but we're okay.
There was backlash. People were very upset about that live stream. Um, yeah, yeah, people were angry about that one. I'll leave it at that.
Whatever. Talk about whatever.
Yeah, whatever belief that you have. I ask that it be something that you actually truly believe, and we'll talk about, what supports your belief. Um, so as long as that's true, that's
Okay. All right. You want me to just, are you going to do an, like, is this part of, are you going to release this or are you going to start now? Or is all what we've just talked about?
I typically, release the entire recording from,
Okay.
from hello to from hello to goodbye.
Okay.
Part of the ethic of this community is, we don't want to be perceived as hiding anything,
Okay.
right? We have these conversations and we just,
You know what? I just had like that little monologue where I gave Nick feedback and said that it wasn't very street epistemology. You know what? Maybe I take that back a little bit. Maybe it's being honest. It's being open. I like that. It's honest. It's open. Speaking what's on his mind, what he believes. I think we need more of that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm okay with that actually.
uh, we want to show real human interactions and
Yeah.
and not have it be artificial.
Okay. Benjamin Boyce has done that to me. When you start the interview, you're having little chit chat and everything.
Yeah.
And then at some point you realize this is the interview. It's like I was waiting for him to say, okay, welcome, this is Benjamin. No, none of that. It just starts.
Yeah.
Um, but that's fine. Okay, well, how about trying to think of the best? How about the claim or my belief that no one is born transgender?
Okay. Uh, I'm trying to think of it because you have a negative in there. Is there a way to phrase it in a way that's no, I mean we can.
My advice to Nick, and I know David likes to do this too. Other people, I'm sure, as well. just go with it. That's my advice. If it's a negative, go with it. I mean, yeah, you can have them frame it positive, and sometimes that's can bring clarity, right? In this situation, ultimately, I think it probably does bring a little clarity, but I don't think it. I don't think it. In most cases, a claim like this, it would matter. But hey, that's just me.
We can start with that. That's fine. We don't need to tweak that. So, so when you say nobody is born transgender, I guess I am wanting to kind of turn that into a positive statement. So are you saying that um, well, maybe I'll ask you to put that in can you define a little bit um, what you mean by that? Because I'm struggling a little bit with the no one is born transgender. The like, what do you mean by that?
I mean, okay, I guess I can put it into, I can take it from the negative into a positive, into an affirmative statement. I could say transgender identities, people who adopt a transgender identity is always the result of some sort of life challenge,
Hmm.
psychiatric disorder, or paraphilia.
Okay. Okay. I think that I like that better from a structural point of view.
Yeah, I remember Reed was having me put everything, all of the things that I suggested for our event were in the negatives, and he
Yeah.
was making me turn them into, which was really difficult because I'm saying that, like, the trans movement created this reality. It's not, in my view, in any way grounded in the reality that the rest of us live in. They created another reality. So I am always saying that's not true. That's not true. This doesn't exist. I'm always going in the negative because they created the mad world that I think is completely fabricated.
Okay. Um, okay. So I'm gonna write this down.
It's kind of like a hard stance atheist, kind of, right? Um, Theists would say a God exists. That would be a positive claim. An atheist would say a God does not exist. But how do you make that positive? There, I don't think I can. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Not all of those claims can really be made positive. I guess I can't think of a way anyway.
Trans
Another good one would be trans activism created an alternate reality. That's a good one.
um but originally you said transgender identity is
Transgender
always
identities are always the result of some sort of life challenge, psychiatric disorder, or paraphilia.
so what do you mean by a life challenge?
I mean, there's various things that it can mean. So, for one, in children, extremely gender nonconforming children are typically pre-homosexual. Extreme gender nonconformity in childhood is a strong indicator of homosexuality in adulthood. And it's difficult. That's a life challenge. To be a very effeminate little boy is a challenge in life because kids are mean. Kids are going to be mean to you, even though we haven't yet eradicated bullying, and it's not easy for a kid to be different. So there's one life challenge. It can just be simply you're just a gender non-conforming kid, and then you suffer from something called gender dysphoria, is what we call it right now, because of that life challenge. It can be many people adopt a trans identity because of trauma. They experience an actual traumatic event, can be a sexual assault, can be abuse in the home, and they the coping mechanism is they adopt a trans identity because they're immersed in this culture that is obsessed with the messaging of trans rights and obsessed with talking about gender identities. So various life challenges. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong in your life, and you're depressed and you're miserable and you're looking for answers, and you just land on trans because it's the fashion and the fad of the era.
Okay, why?
I'm really interested to see what question Nick is about to ask right here. But one thing that Mia and I definitely don't exactly see eye to eye on this is like she's saying, like, there might be this trauma, there might be a life difficulty, and that might result in someone adopting this trans identity. And I definitely think that's possible. Like, no doubt that's possible. Is that the case all of the time? I think that's what she's saying, and maybe I'm not. Maybe that's not what she's saying. Maybe we'll find out later that in the conversation that that's not really what she's saying. But like, I don't know. That I really hope Nick digs into that a little bit more, because that's interesting. Um, like, is this identity correlate with reality? Like, does it make sense? Does that you get what I'm saying? Um, but like, is all this other trauma the result in this? I don't know. I'm out on that one.
And thank you for that. I think I understand that now. Why is this important to you?
That's what he asked.
It was a gradual. It was something of a gradual process in that.
So Nick asks why that. I love that. I love that question. Perhaps not right now, though. I don't think now is an appropriate time for that. I would have wanted to ask why the trauma, the end result of the trauma, is a trans identity. I would wanted to see how she made that connection. That's what I would have wanted to ask. Good question, I guess. Just I don't think the timing's right.
First, when I first discovered the whole political issue, it fascinated me in a kind of, wow, that's really weird. Like, men are saying men are women, men are lesbians. What is going on? None of this makes any sense. But it was just in a kind of like, I was laughing at it. That's so silly. That's stupid. Men in women's sports. What is this? And then I discovered detransitioners. As soon as I discovered this cohort of they were mostly young lesbians back in 2020 when I discovered them, because the first wave of detransitioners are just lesbians. They just got caught up because they're gender nonconforming lesbians. And I heard the stories of, they're talking about their mastectomies, and they're talking about the testosterone and what happened to them while they were teenagers, and how the medical world, there was no safeguarding, there were no guardrails, and they were allowed to make this decision long before they were mature. And I was genuinely horrified. Like, genuinely, I felt sick to my stomach. It made my blood run cold. And that's when I became completely fixated, because I have a daughter, because I was once a teenage girl, because I understand how easy it is to be knocked off course when you're young and vulnerable and in a state of distress. And so I see it as an actual true medical crime. And because the way I made sense of it was turning to medical history, I couldn't make sense of how this could possibly be happening now. It seemed too awful to be true. So I turned to medical history, reading medical scandals. And that's when I figured out the patterns that go through all of these medical scandals. And I realized I was even more horrified to realize the actual scale of this one.
Okay,
Okay, I'm hoping what Nick does here is he repeats back what he's hearing, and I'm going to repeat back what I'm hearing, and hopefully Nick says the same thing. what I'm hearing is that this subject, this claim, is important to Mia because of the people impacted by it, right? Because of negative consequences of the people impacted by it, right? So she doesn't want to see people in harm's way. She doesn't want people to be harmed. That's what I'm hearing, and I think it's accurate, and I hope Nick repeats that back and confirms it.
You're not directly impacted,
No,
is
I'm
what
not.
I'm
I
hearing.
mean,
So
I live
why?
in I live in Ottawa, so I live in Canada, so I know kids missing body parts. I literally know
Yeah.
teenage lesbians who are autistic that are missing body parts because our gender clinic here in Ottawa puts them on puberty blockers after one 20-minute appointment. No psychological
So
assessment, no counseling, straight onto the drugs.
okay, but so just to rephrase to you, the reason this is important to you is you see things happening that you think shouldn't be happening, and that inspires you to take action.
That's very much framing in the way Nick like is viewing Mia, like from Nick's perspective. Nick, go in her shoes. Frame it from her shoes. Don't frame it from your shoes. Frame it from her shoes. Okay? Because if you frame it from your shoes, it's no longer street epistemology. It's a debate. Just saying.
Um, is Why is it important for you to take action on this?
I think that was the same question, Nick. That wasn't any different.
Personally?
Well, for another element of one of the crucial parts of when I became obsessed was I'm a mother of three, and it was actually reading the stories. There's a Substack, Parents with Inconvenient Truths About Trends, and it's the parents of these kids, and they're all anonymous. None of them can speak out. They're all in the absolute depths of despair. And I would weep reading their stories, what they're going through. And that was just reading their stories as I started to speak out publicly, because I don't have a child in this. If you have a child sucked into this, you can't speak out because you risk losing the relationship with your child. If you speak out against it, your child could never talk to you again. And
So
so
wait,
I don't have that, so I can speak out when these parents can't.
can you
And
tell me more about why these parents can't speak out? Because if they're, I think what you said is if they spoke out, they'd be supporting their children.
no, you see, what happens, there's different types of parents in this medical scandal.
Nick, but you're kind of what I said before, where you're framing it from your shoes instead of Mia's shoes. I, I'm not sure what you could. I don't think you understand what she was saying. Um, and I guess it's good that you're asking, like, but like I don't know. I don't know. I think you guys are not on the same page. Hopefully, you get on the same page soon.
And there's the type of parent who affirms and is happy that their kid thinks that they're a member of the opposite sex. Those parents speak out and they're very vocal. Look at me, I'm a great parent, I'm affirming my child. And then there's the type of parents who read the scientific literature and realize that there's nothing to support this, and realize that this is a social contagion, and that their child is caught up in something really massive, and that no one in the medical world is going to protect their child because the medical world has gone mad. And they're horrified. They want to save their child from making a catastrophic mistake. They don't want their child to end up one of those detransitioners that I first discovered. The numbers are growing every single day. And so they want to speak out and say, this is wrong. This is not medicine. This is a scandal. But if they speak out and say that, their child will think that they're transphobic because this mad medical experiment is tied to a human rights cause. And if you oppose the medical experiment, you are transphobic. And though, as parents, they can't speak because if their child sees them as being transphobic, they will never talk to them again. But
So
I can speak.
you're saying that these people they would be putting themselves in opposition to what their children want. Why do you believe that the parents in that situation are correct and the children who adopt the identity are incorrect?
Well, because first of all, this is this is absolutely for sure 100% a social contagion triggered by the messaging of the modern trans rights movement. This explosion of adolescents who
Hang on. I want to get to this. You made an assertion that in a situation where a child has adopted a trans identity and a parent objects to that, that the parent is correct and the child is wrong. What's the main reason that you believe that that's true?
well, but what I was saying, so the child is caught up in a culture-bound syndrome. The child is caught up in a social contagion that's triggered by the messaging of the modern trans rights movement.
Well, that's the assertion again. So what I'm hearing is that's the same. What I'm looking for is what is the reason that you believe that? Because what I want to get down to is like the method that you're using to figure out that that's true.
Okay, so you want me to explain why it's a social contagion?
Well,
I mean, just to make it clear what I mean, okay? Like, I'll give you a hypothetical. You have, in fact, I'll describe a girl that I know. This is a real story. You have a 13-year-old girl. She's not doing so well. Puberty is difficult, and she's in, I don't know, she was in grade 7 or 8, and at school a group comes in and they do a presentation about trans. And if you hate your body, could be a sign that you're transgender. If you dislike your secondary sex characteristics, could be a sign that you're transgender. Like 2 weeks later, she's been stewing on this. She hates her body. She's miserable. She's depressed. And she comes to the conclusion that she's a boy. Okay. So she comes out to her mother. Now, her mother gave birth to this child. Her mother raised this child, paid attention to every emotion, every feeling, everything. Mothers know their children. I knew every single ache and pain that my child had. I knew every little worry that they had because children don't hold these things in. They tell you everything. They tell you way too much. So the mother knows that there has never been any sign that this girl is a boy. Never, ever in all her 13 years. And she also knows that she had this crazy presentation that taught her that if you hate your body, you might be trans. So who's right? Is it the mother who knows her daughter, or is it the teenager who really truly believes that what is going on is real? Because teenagers believe everything in the moment passionately, and she was taught this by somebody, a person in authority who she trusted, and everything in her mind makes sense. Yes, I hate my breasts because I'm a boy. Yes, I'm depressed and miserable because I'm a boy. But it's simply impossible. Girls are not boys. And at no point in human history could she ever have come to that conclusion. It had to be modern trans activism who said, if you hate your body, that's because you're a boy. She never could have come to that conclusion at any other point in human history. And the mother knows this because mothers know their daughters, mothers know their children. And so then the mother reads the scientific literature. Oh my God, there's nothing there. Who's right? Of course the mother's right.
Okay, so
She did answer the question. I don't know. I definitely don't agree with Mia. I agree with the conclusion, but not the method. Um, I think that parents can be mistaken about their children, even good parents, about lots of stuff, what they like, what their preferences are. You know, I can be mistaken. I'm sure I have been mistaken, about things my daughter wants, likes, prefers, whatever. Um, so I don't, and to be honest, I don't think that's epistemically sound right there. It did answer the question though, so kudos to that. Um, I think I would have answered that much differently. I would have gone along the routes of, um, let's say a child, for whatever reason, whether it be something they heard in a presentation by the trans rights movement, whatever it might be, however they found this, came to this conclusion about their body and not liking it, right? Um, what I would question would be like, why would you want to alter it? You know, I mean, I get that you wouldn't like it, prefer it. I empathize with that. Like, that sucks. Like, not liking your body, like, that's the worst. Um, but, altering it with drugs or surgery, is that the best method to alleviate that discomfort? And I would say that's probably not. That's how I would answer it. Um, but I'm interested to see how Nick goes at this. What I would have done is basically what I said right here. I would have been like, "That's interesting. I'm a parent. I think I can be mistaken about my child. You know, I don't think I know everything about her. That would have been my approach. Let's see what Nick does."
It sounds like, if I could paraphrase back to you, that you're saying the reason that you believe that the daughter is wrong and the mother is right is that a mother knows their child better than the child knows themselves.
No, I'm saying that the mother is grounded in reality and the child has adopted an idea that is anti-reality, completely impossible, and planted in her mind by activists who are not in touch with reality. Girls are not boys. Impossible.
A little feedback for me, if you're watching. Um, the example, I don't think you framed it. Me and Nick came to the same conclusion. We thought you were saying the parent knows the child better than the parent knows the child better than the child knows themselves. We both came to that conclusion after hearing your example. So I think it might need some work. Um, Maybe that's not the best example to use.
And if you hate your body when you're a teenage girl, that's not because you're a boy, it's because you're a teenage girl. So I believe the mother is right because she lives in reality, and I believe the poor, depressed, miserable teenage girl is wrong because she has had an anti-scientific, anti-reality idea put in her mind by activists who really ought to know better.
Okay. Is it possible? Let's take a hypothetical. Let's get out of the trans space because I think it might be difficult for you to engage with this hypothetical in this space. Let's imagine.
A few things here. If Nick, you are trying to stick strictly with street epistemology, there's a few times here that you've been a little bit pointed, pointed in a very not great way. Like it was like earlier, I think you said like, what was it? Something about that's the like she was like you said she wasn't give the reason or something, and it was like that's the claim or something like that. And then here you were a little bit like let's get away because I don't think you can handle it or something like you didn't say that, but something like that. So if you're strictly sticking with street epistemology, you know. Oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that.
Child
Where
better
were
than the
we?
child knows themselves. Child has been affected by
Activists who really ought to know better.
okay.
Where
That's
were
not
we?
because you're a boy, it's because you're a teenage girl. Completely impossible and planted in her mind by activists. Leave the poor, depressed, miserable teen.
Let's imagine a different case. Is it possible that there's some case where a parent thinks their child has been affected by some influence, and the parent is drawing the wrong conclusion?
I think in the adolescent years, parents can't. You don't know. Your adolescent child can be up to anything. I mean, there's absolutely no way I know everything that my
So, Nick, Mia had already kind of clarified that this wasn't that both you and we both misunderstood. So I can't blame you for misunderstanding it. But then she did clarify, and she was like, "Yeah, it's not really that. It's more about the other reasons. This is anti-science. This is science. That's kind of what she was saying. So you might want to dig into that instead of sticking on this misunderstanding."
adolescent children are up to right now. No way. Children, actual, like in early childhood, kids don't hide anything. They don't have the ability. They don't even understand how to hide something. Kids will just overshare everything. And you can, I mean, I guess if you're a terrible parent and you don't pay any attention to your children, you might miss something. But if you're an attentive parent, you can see when something is bothering your child. I mean, I've always been able to see when my children were small. I always knew when something was bothering them. I may not have known what it was until I pressed the issue, but I always knew. If something, I could tell when they came home. If something happened at kindergarten, I knew and I was going to get it out of them. Children don't hide stuff. Adolescents hide everything. You can't trust them.
So are you saying no, it's not possible for a parent to be mistaken about something that their child believes?
A small child, if you're an attentive parent, no.
Okay.
An adolescent, absolutely.
Um, are there parents who support their children's trans identity?
Of course.
So would you say, so what you believe that it's not possible for a parent to be wrong about what their child is experiencing?
This is awkward because it's like somebody needs to point out the misunderstanding here.
Can you can you compare these two cases for me? So you've said that if a parent, if a child, let's say a child adopts a trans identity, you're saying
Okay, well, wait, what
parent,
age? What age child?
this is your scenario, not my scenario. So the child adopts a trans identity, and you're saying the parent could not possibly be wrong about that. But we have parents that support their children, and we have parents that don't support their children. How can I, if I take a neutral stance, I talk to both of these parents, how can I tell which of them is mistaken?
But wrong about what, though? A parent can't be wrong about what?
Well, what you asserted a few minutes ago is if a child takes a trans identity, well, if the child does anything, the parent always knows better than the child what
Oh
what's
no,
going on with the child.
no.
Okay.
I'm not saying the parent always knows better than the child. I'm saying the parent always knows something is going on. Okay? There's a difference. Now, in the specific case of trans, and there's no real hypothetical that you can compare trans to because it's an alternate reality. It's a different universe. So in the specific case of trans, if what the point that I'm actually making is there is no possible way that, okay, let me just say what we're supposed to believe. All of these adolescents in 2014, 2015, there was an explosion of adolescents who suddenly were trans. Okay. And what we're supposed to believe is that all of these adolescents are transgender and that all of their parents who say that there was no sign that they were trans in childhood, all of those parents just missed it. They just didn't see it. It was there all along, but they didn't see it. Okay. I'm saying that is impossible because parents, unless they are the worst parents in the world, parents see that. Like all of these kids that are supposedly trans, but they're not, like Jazz Jennings and the little boys who are very effeminate and they're being told that they're girls. The parents know, your child is extremely gender nonconforming from age 2. It shows up right away. You can see which toys they like. You can see which clothing they like, or you can see which activities they like. Your child is not pretending to be gender conforming at 2 years old. Impossible. No child could ever do that. Children like what they like. They play with what they like to play with. They don't even, you can't even force them to wear clothing they don't like. Believe me, I used to try and put hair clips in my daughter's hair, gone within a split second. Children don't hide this. So what I'm saying is, it is completely impossible that all of these thousands and thousands of parents who are like, what? My daughter's a boy and there was never any sign of gender nonconformity. It's impossible that those parents are wrong. Completely impossible. That's my point.
That is really interesting. Really interesting. So and to be honest, like the way I view gender is like, or at least gender stereotypes, which I think gender stereotypes is really what she's talking about here. I mean, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's talking about gender stereotypes. And the way I view them is like, I view them as stereotypes created by society, created by what's typical, what people's opinions, basically, and it's like, okay, so a girl is playing with some trucks, wants to wear pants all the time, likes to play on the playground, likes to watch football with their dad. Is that gender nonconformity? Or, like if a boy wears a dress one time, is that gender nonconformity? Like, I don't know. I feel like the lines are really, really, really blurry, That's just what's on my mind when I was listening to that. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. It's totally possible I don't misunderstood everything that she said, but that's where I'm at.
And the reason that you believe it's impossible for them to be wrong is that you believe that parents will always know everything about
in the trans situation? In the trans situation, because the way you can tell if a kid is transgender, and I'm not making this up, this is real, the way you can tell in the gender madness world is they play with the toys of the opposite sex. So a little boy, the way you can tell he's a girl is because he likes Barbie dolls, princesses, he likes to wear princess gowns, he likes pink, he likes sparkles. The way you can tell that a girl is a boy, she doesn't like wearing dresses, she likes short hair, she likes rough and tumble play. That's actually how you can tell, supposedly, that these kids are trans. I am saying that no parent would miss that. No parent would miss the extreme gender nonconformity. I remember what all my kids played with. I remember which toys they gravitated to at what age. No parent could miss it.
That
It's it's interesting. Um, I guess she's right in the sense I don't think a parent could miss it. And I think she's saying it doesn't. Is she saying it matters or doesn't matter? I'm a little lost on that because if as a parent, if I viewed that, I don't think I'd put much stock in it. It wouldn't really matter. Like, what does that mean? Now, I would say basically nothing. Does it mean homosexuality? I don't know. Probably not. Does it mean they were born in the wrong body? I don't think so. I hope that no. I don't know. That's I'm confused.
that's an interesting statement that you've made. So you've said that you noticed all these things, and then you extended that to say no parent could miss it. Why is your experience like can you tell me more about how you extend your experience to other people? Why is your personal experience a good reason to believe that something is true of other parents?
Well, I mean, I've spent enough time around all the parents in my life. So, first of all, you've got to understand that the parent's the one that buys the toys, and the parent's the one that tidies up the toys, and the parent's the one that sits and watches the child playing with the toys. The parent is the one who takes the child out into.
So, Nick, I think you're skipping a step here. Um, you're not confirming the reason, right? You're just which the reason you stated might be the reason. It might not be the reason. It might be how she got to her conclusion, right? Which is the parents know and know what's best. I think, and you're like personal experience, personal experience. Why is that so great? Without like saying, "Hey, was it personal experience that got you here?" And then yes, no, so kind of skipping over a step there. Um, let's continue.
Of the world and watches them play. Because if you are a good parent, you are watching that child. If it's a small child, you're watching that child all the time. How could you miss what they play with? It's impossible. You're
Are
going to
all,
see what they play with.
are
Otherwise,
all parents good parents, and do all parents notice everything about what how their children play?
oh, well, I am making this judgment that you are a parent who doesn't just let your child be feral and fend for itself and hope that it doesn't die. Like I would hope that you've got some level of parental commitment and you're going to watch your child and you're going to buy your child toys and you're going to tidy up those toys and you're going to be attentive and understand. You're going to know your child. I mean, it's possible. I think it's completely impossible or implausible to the extreme that all of these parents, thousands and thousands and thousands, that suddenly, when their daughter is 13, she announces she's a boy. I think it's impossible that these parents would be the type of parents who paid no attention, didn't even look at their kids. In fact, I know that that's the opposite because I know many of them now, and they are very attentive parents. Many of them are on the brink of being the sort of helicopter parents. So they will be the ones who really were involved in their child's life. This is not, I've never come across one who strikes me as being the inattentive, couldn't care less type parent. So it stands to reason that a
Mhm.
parent knows what their child likes on just the most basic level. I mean, you don't need to get into the depths of their emotions, but you do know that you bought them a really expensive truck and they're over there playing with a Barbie doll of their sisters. You'll notice that as a parent. How could you not?
Yeah. It,
So, Nick, earlier you asked why is this important, and I thought it was not the good timing. Now it might be the good timing. I hope you asked that. Like, why is this whole uh, thing gender stereotypes? I think that's what she's referring to here. Why are gender stereotypes even something to look at? Why are we looking at this? Why is it important?
is it possible that some parents are less attentive than others? Is it possible for
This doesn't
somebody
matter,
to care
Nick.
about their child,
Nick, Nick, it doesn't
observe their
matter.
child, and yet miss things?
Of course.
Okay. So it's possible that not all parents would catch these things that you're talking
You're
about.
you're
Oh,
come
I
on, man.
can't even see though. You could be a really inattentive parent, but you're still buying the toys and you're still cleaning up the toys. So you still see which toys your child plays with. You dress your child. So you have to, I would think most children are incapable of dressing themselves. So you have an idea of what clothing your child prefers, and you know what kind of fight you have to get the girl into the dress or whatever. So
Yeah.
even if you are one of the worst possible parents and you don't even care about your child, I would assume that at the most basic level you would know what toys and clothes they like. I just don't see how, unless you are so poor or so awful that you don't buy them toys or clothes. I don't see how you wouldn't know that most basic fact about your child.
Mhm. But it would be possible. Like so we definitely have some parents who could not miss that or could not read into that. And maybe some parents that do. But I'm interested in getting back to, so this is the main reason that you believe that transgender identity is always the result of some sort of life challenge, psychiatric disorder or paraphilia. Can you connect the dots for me between your observation that parents
This is basically what I was asking Nick to do. So thank you for finally getting to it, Nick.
know their children and that main claim?
Yeah, I mean I think I have a tendency to go off on tangents. So that was when you asked me life challenges, and I
Mhm.
was saying the gender nonconforming child,
Yeah.
it's difficult and it eases it's a short-term fix. You know, you think about Jazz Jennings, he was a very effeminate little boy. He loved Barbie dolls, high heels, sparkly bathing suits. And when his mother decided that he was a girl, he got to wear all of those wonderful things, and it solved all his discomfort and his difficulties in childhood. And so you can see why the parents go there. It's just the cost is so enormous later in life. But that's one tiny aspect of it. What the only the reason that I believe it is the result of either the life challenge, the psychiatric disorder, or the paraphilia is because we were in around like 2015, this new type of person springs into existence, right? Transgender people, they've got a mismatched gender soul residing in their body, and everyone's just supposed to accept that there are male women and female men. And
Is,
for me, huh?
is that true? That transgender identity didn't exist before 2015?
No, no, it's not. That's not what I mean. I mean this new type of human being where there are male women and female men. That exploded into the public consciousness in about 2015.
Okay.
Prior to that time,
Yeah.
there were people who were called transsexuals, and they were individuals who had a psychiatric disorder called gender identity disorder, and they medically altered their bodies to ease their suffering. But around 2015, this new type of human being is suddenly thrust upon us, and that is the male woman. Like trans women are women. They're not transsexuals, they're not men who identify as women. They are literal women, exactly the same as any other woman. That's
Are,
brand new, 2015.
are you talking just about the language that we use to describe those individuals?
Well, it's more than just language though, because these male women enjoy all the protections in law that women enjoy or that women have. These male women are literally women in law, and they are considered in society to be actual real women when they're not. They're men.
And this is new?
Brand new, 2015. Probably Ontario was the first, 2012. We were the first to really like accept this new concept of trans women are women. But most of the world, Time magazine 2014 actually announced it. Laverne Cox is on the cover, heavily filtered and everything, and he's on the cover in a blue dress, and they say the transgender tipping point, America's next civil rights movement. And that's basically the launch of trans women are women. prior to that, this group still existed, these paraphilic men still existed, but they were not women. They weren't, and nobody had to believe that they were actual women. From 2015 on, we had to believe that they were literally women, and to say that they were not made us transphobic. So for me, when I look at that, I know they're not women. I know for a fact, because I know what women are. I am one, and I know that they're not women. So all I had to do was trace it back and see, well, if they're not women, what led them to think that they are? And
So
in all of the
yeah,
research I've done,
I want to get back to the claim and then the reason that supports the claim. So I think what you're saying now is that maybe your main reason is about this change that happened in 2015. So like if we went back before 2015 and we had these people with life challenges or with a psychiatric disorder or paraphilia.
This is interesting. So initially the conversation, so the original claim was nobody is born trans, and then kind of talked a lot about parents and gender stereotypes. It felt like they never really got to the core there. I think there was a lot of talking past each other, and then Mia kind of went on a little bit of a tangent, um, which is fine. And Nick kind of grasped onto a potential new reason. I would like him to kind of compare these reasons, maybe not. I don't know. Let's see where this goes.
Uh, you would say that these people did not have a transgender identity?
to be clear, my claim, because I had to turn it into, I flipped it. When it was in the negative, it was clearer in my mind. And that is, no one is born trans. No one is innately transgender. There's no such thing as an innately transgender person. Instead, what there is a cultural category of transgender people that we have created in this time and in this place. And it is a variety of life challenges, psychiatric disorders, and paraphilic desires that will lead a person to take that label transgender that we have culturally created, apply it to their life, and then move through the world as a transgender person and maybe make catastrophic medical decisions based on the fact that they've adopted that label.
So the term innate then is carrying a lot of weight here. So you're saying that there's no say medical category for people who are transgender. So, and this
not necessarily medical, but I mean, no one's born trans. That's the easiest way for me to say it. It's not like there's a category of people that have this. It's just like from 2015 onwards, or from 2013 onwards, we were supposed to believe that being trans was perfectly natural and healthy. Some people are just born that way. They modeled it on gay rights, and good for them. They put in a lot of, they did a good job. Like gay rights, born this way, there's nothing you can do. It's just a natural variation of human existence. Just accept us for who we are and who we love. Leave us alone. And gay rights was massively successful. We take it for granted now how successful gay rights was, because we all just, well, for the most part, we all just accept that some people are gay and who cares. But think about the enormous gains of gay rights. It was such an impressive human rights campaign. And trans rights just tried to model itself on gay rights. And that's why they adopted this born this way. But it's not true. It's really far more complex than that. And it is always a response to something difficult in your life. That's why you've come to the conclusion that you will be happier having hormones and surgeries and living as a member of the opposite sex.
So would you say that, I mean, would you say that it would it be possible for somebody to have? I mean, what you're saying is it's impossible for somebody to be innately trans. How do you know that that's true? This is where the negative doesn't really help us because it's difficult
To
to
prove a negative.
prove. You can, there's lots of negatives you can prove. I'm not sure like how like what's supporting that belief.
What supports the belief is really looking at the group who say they are transgender.
Hmm.
Okay. So I'm mostly interested, I'm really interested. I think I come at this at a way that is absolutely more compassionate. People will disagree with this, but more compassionate and better for people who identify as transgender because I actually care about why they've come to this decision. And so you take the group of people in society today who say they are transgender, and then you look at who they are, why they've come to that conclusion. So you'll have heterosexual men who are, they come out as women in middle age. Why would a heterosexual man who's not in any way feminine come out as a woman in middle age? That's fascinating. So then I trace it. Okay, what have we got? What explanation do we have? Transactivism gives me he has a female essence residing within him. That's a religious belief. That's an article of faith. That's pseudoscientific garbage. And I'm like, I I guess in the same way that it's possible that reincarnation is true, or Scientologists and the Thetans is true. There's a glimmer of possibility that this female essence residing in the middle-aged man could be true, I suppose. I'm willing to give it a tiny, you'd have to show me some really strong evidence for it. Okay.
How do you,
Or,
yeah, how do you know that that person wasn't trans at birth?
well, what I'm saying is why is it's not is he trans, it's is he female? Is he a woman? Right? So the very idea that this man, middle-aged, 50 years old, very masculine, father of children, everything, the very idea that this man could have been female on the inside from birth, never shown any sign of being female on the inside from birth, goes all the way heterosexual, gets married, has kids, normal masculine man, and suddenly at middle age he comes out as a woman. It is, I suppose, it's implausible in the extreme. And what I want is I want there's a really solid explanation for why he has come out as a woman in middle age, and that is autogynephilia, which is truly in a field of medicine that is just like mountains and mountains of the most ridiculous junk science. Autogynephilia is about the only part of this field of medicine that is somewhat decent science. Like there's actual evidence and ways of measuring this man and his arousal at being, having a pap smear or menstruating or putting on mascara. So we have a really solid explanation for why this man in middle age would come out as a woman, and it's literally got nothing to do with having a female soul. It's his paraphilia.
So
Okay.
if there's so
So this was really interesting. So, like, one explanation would be a female soul. Another explanation would be autogynephilia. So it's a sexual desire to have a vagina as a man, or I guess as anyone, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, that's the basic explanation. I talked with Michael Bailey on a live stream a while back, and tried to get down to the nuts and bolts of it because he's kind of one of the more popular people with regards to that subject. And I I don't. I came to the conclusion that his research was flawed. I don't think it correlated. I think he has data, but I don't think the data connects to the claim, right? I think there's a flaw in there. I think that is the flaw. And with that being said, um, with this example of this middle-aged guy, final has kids, married, whatever, and then he's like comes out as trans, right? Um, which explanation is more likely? And the way I view it is, for me personally, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, like, would I like to know the answer? Should we figure out the answer? Sure. I think it's worth pursuing. But I think what's more important than pursuing, the why is like, what's the best thing to do about it? Where do you go from there? Where does that individual go from there, right? Do they make body modifications to make them happier? Do they get counseling? Go therapy? You know, what is the best route? Do they just get out more and try to be around family and friends as much as possible? Go out and do the hobbies you love. You know, I don't know what the solution is, right? I don't know. I think we should try to figure out what the best solution is, right? The causation, I'd love to know, but I think the solution, where we go, what we do with that, what's the best for that person. That's what I'm more interested in. But anyways, that was a bit of a tangent. Let's continue on.
So it sounds like you're open to evidence, to scientific evidence, medical.
And I also just want to note, like, there might be other explanations. That was just the two that Mia outlined. Like, are there other ones? I don't know. Sure, maybe.
Evidence supporting a paraphilia. Uh, if you became convinced that there was medical evidence that supported people having a trans identity at birth, would that reduce your confidence in your belief?
Sure.
Okay.
You see, this is the thing, because I've spent so much time in there, because I want to look at both sides, and I've spent so much time in the world of gender affirming activism kind of medicine. So I've seen what they've got. And honestly, they've got nothing. And if they had something, we would have seen it. If they had it. They had the evidence. They had evidence that man, 50 years old, he was born with a female essence inside him, and it just took him 50 years to finally have the courage to. If they had that evidence, we would have seen it, because they share the most absolutely atrocious evidence, and they overblow it to say that it means, that there's female essence. But if they had real science to prove it, we'd have seen it, and we haven't, so it doesn't exist.
So I'm going to compare this to another claim, and so what Mia is trying kind of saying here, and I'm going to use a different claim to try to explain it. It's like, let's say the Christian God is, or let's not even go there. Let's just say a God exists, a higher power who oversees the earth, right? That exists. That's the claim. And what Mia is saying is, like, there's no good evidence to believe that. Like, maybe there is evidence, maybe someone prayed to this God, and their sick nephew or parent recovered. And it's like, yep, technically that's evidence, right? It's not good evidence. It is evidence, but it doesn't. You can't connect that. It doesn't. Has no weight, right? So I believe that's what Mia is saying here. She's saying that she has heard this claim, she has investigated the evidence, but the evidence She's determined that there is a flaw in all the evidence that she has uncovered.
One of the things you've mentioned was gender nonconforming children. Is that something that has medical evidence?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's oh no, it's not been released yet. There's a conversation coming about this. So the reason that we know that extreme gender nonconformity in childhood is a strong indicator of homosexuality in adulthood is because in the 1950s and 60s, when these middle-aged men that I'm talking about with a paraphilia, when they were showing up at the clinics of psychiatrists and sexologists asking for hormones and surgeries, they all said, we were very effeminate children. We always knew we were girls on the inside. And so the researchers thought, okay, well, let's go and look for transsexual children. And they naturally, because these men were saying they were effeminate children, which was not true, they were lying, but they naturally went and they took a whole massive cohort of effeminate boys, did a prospective study, followed them for 20 years to see if they became transsexual adults, and they didn't. They were all gay. And there's no replication crisis in this field of medicine. That one was 20 years long. The most famous one was 20 years long, but they've done many studies like this looking for transsexual children, and all they find is future homosexuals. So it's actually a pretty solid field of research. But the interesting motivation that I find is they were looking for transsexual children so that they could intervene and prevent them from growing up to be transsexual adults. That was the point of the research. But all they found were pre-homosexuals, just people destined to grow up to be gay men. So yeah, there's science to it.
Okay.
And it's interesting science.
Is it possible for research to draw the wrong conclusion?
Absolutely. Of course.
Okay. If you were wrong about your claim, would you want to know?
Yes.
Right. And how would you find out?
How would I find out that I'm wrong? Again, I suppose I'm the type of person that I just need evidence. I need whoever is telling me that some men are women and some teenage girls are boys and they need their breasts cut off. I need you to produce a stack of the best possible scientific evidence to support your claim, because the medical procedure is so invasive and so brutal, and like you're chopping the breasts off.
So basically, what this question, remember how I explained like the God thing and the lack of evidence? It's kind of like that situation here. Like asking that question is like, how could you learn if you're mistaken? It's like asking an atheist, how could you learn if you were mistaken about God? And it's a difficult question to answer. Like, I don't know what I'd answer, but what she said sounds pretty good for if someone were to ask me, what it would take for me to believe in a God. Hey, yeah, that sounded pretty good. But listen carefully as she proceeds here. She's no longer answering that question. She's actually answering why it's important. And I'm happy she's doing that. That's a good thing to expand on.
For a 16-year-old girl, you better have an enormous pile of the best quality scientific literature to say that is safe, beneficial, and she is not going to regret it. I need that because of what you're doing. In life, I don't necessarily need it. In other more inconsequential areas of life, you don't need this solid evidence. But if you're committing what I believe is such an egregious crime against innocent adolescents, you better damn well have a mountain of good quality evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought I had another question, but
Yeah, I don't know what I would ask after that either. Um, yeah. Good luck, Nick.
but I may be it may be that that's all I've got. So, do you have any questions about this process?
I don't. I mean, that was actually really good for me because I've done hundreds of interviews and really only Peter really challenges me and makes me think, and that makes sense now. But I just get asked the same questions over and over again, and nobody really makes me think. I feel it's almost robotic. I just say the same stuff over and over again. So that was really interesting. I don't know that I fully.
I think that was the best compliment she could have given you right there, Nick. Because I know that's what you want to do. You want to make people think, and I think she's saying that you made her think, and it wasn't like the same questions over and over again. So kudos to you.
Gave you reasons for some of my beliefs.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's I think part of the challenge for me, and this is why, to be frank, when we were initially talking about this, I was suggesting we might do something as a like a hidden claim because you are so used to talking about this stuff, you're kind of on a script,
Yeah,
and so it's kind of difficult to get
yeah.
down to the reasons and the justifications and the epistemology. I really like what you say about scientific evidence. How do you know that you are really looking at and looking for evidence rather than exercising confirmation bias and kind of looking for the things that support your conclusions? That's kind of a
Well,
little more direct question than I would usually ask, but I know you know about like reasoning and justification and cognitive biases. So
I think the main reason is I would love to be wrong. And I'm not the type of person in life who likes to be wrong, believe me. I hate it. But on this issue that I've actually devoted my life to, every moment of every day pretty much, I would love to be wrong because think about it. If I'm wrong, all of these young people losing their fertility, sacrificing their healthy functioning reproductive organs and their healthy breasts, they're all going to live happily ever after. And nobody is going to live a life of misery and despair. And that's the best outcome. I want to be wrong. I want there to be evidence somewhere that, blocking puberty of a 12-year-old because she thinks she's a member of the opposite sex. I want there to be evidence that says that is the right thing to do. Because if I'm right, we are truly witnessing a medical catastrophe of epic proportions that has never been seen before. Like there's no medical scandal that could rival what this one is if I'm right. So I would actually love it. I'd love to see the evidence that I'm wrong because then great. It's not a catastrophe. It's not a terrible crime. The problem is I'm surrounded by the detransitioners. I'm surrounded by the people who have been harmed, and more appear every single day. And it's getting really hard to hold on to the fact that I could be wrong because I see the harm. It's right there before me.
who, who do you talk to in the community of people who are happy trans individuals?
Oh, almost nobody will talk to me, but they're very visible. You can see them. The trouble is, I get a lot of grief for this one. The trouble is, I understand. So I understand the psychology, the sunk cost fallacy, or the self-deception that when you've made a decision that you cannot take back, you're powerfully psychologically motivated to keep on telling yourself that you made the right decision. And in the early literature, when they actually really tried to study people who embarked on this medical pathway, there's a lot of evidence of this in that like the people will be suffering from terrible complications. Their life situation will be quite grim and awful, and they're not forming intimate relationships. And they'll say things like, they're suffering from shame about their genital appearance and all the rest of it. But they always say, but I'm happy. I'm glad I did it. It's the right thing for me. If I hadn't done it, I'd be dead. And they say this, and I understand. You've sacrificed your body parts. You can't go back. And all of the detransitioners tell me they went through a period of years where they kept saying to themselves, I'm happy. This is the right decision. I know I made the right decision. If I hadn't done it, I'd be dead. When somewhere in the back of their mind, they actually knew, oh, this hasn't helped me at all. I feel terrible. So it's very difficult for me. All of the regret studies and everything, they've got these bonkers studies that say less than 1% regret their genital surgery. It's like, are you mad? Are you out of your mind? But it's all self-report. It's all like, they just ask a bunch of people, are you happy that you had your penis inverted? And they say, yeah, I'm happy. But you can't trust them because the sunk cost fallacy. You just had your penis chopped off. Of course, you're going to tell yourself you're happy.
So I'm hearing you say that you talk to a lot of detransitioners who are very unhappy about their transition, and you believe them. And then you hear from people who have transitioned and report being happy about the transition, and you don't believe them.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm saying there are definitely, I believe that some people are happy in some way with having their penis inverted or their breast cut off or whatever. I think like there are some people for whom it is working out, okay? And maybe their life is better. I'm not even, I can't, I'm not making any judgment about that. What I'm saying, when I mean, I hope I'm wrong, when I say I hope I'm wrong, what I mean by that is because pretty much all of what I do is I study and I speak and I write about the modern phenomenon, the modern approach to gender medicine, which is no safeguarding, no differential diagnosis, no psychological assessment, nothing like that. Just if a person says they're trans, however old they are, teenager, whatever, if a person identifies as trans, they should have access to hormones and surgeries.
I
And
just want to pause you, Mia, because again, you kind of getting on the script, and I want to get to that last point, right? If there's people who self-report as happy, and then there's people who self-report as unhappy, how do you weigh those against each other?
right, what I
when,
mean
when
by
should we believe somebody when they report they're happy? And I just want to acknowledge we've moved away from the concept of trans being innate. I think that's a special thing. And now I think we're talking about like the utility and the about whether people's lives are better, which is it's kind of a completely different idea, and I just want to acknowledge that. But if one person, if I'm looking at somebody and I talk to one person who says they're unhappy about their transition, and I talk to somebody who says they're happy about the transition, how do I, as a neutral party, tell which one of them is right, or can they both be right, or can they both be wrong?
I like that question. I like that question. I think I know how Mia's going to answer. I think she's probably going to talk about the sunk cost fallacy, like she said before. But that's a good question, Nick. I like that.
I if I'm for me, if you look at you take one detransitioner and one person who's happy, the detransitioner has, as far as I can tell, the detransitioner would have no reason for self-deception. They're being honest. Like, why would they deceive themselves into thinking that they regret what they've done?
I think what she's kind of describing is like the detransitioner is in a much more vulnerable state. Like why would they even be out and open about it? Maybe I'm reading into it too much.
well, what's the motivation to have self-deception? Whereas the person who says they're happy, there's a strong motivation because they've made a decision that they cannot go back on. Detransitioners have gone back. They made that decision.
No, I was wrong. She was just comparing motivation. So she's saying that the motivation for someone who is reports a positive outcome, it has a motivation to like keep themselves upbeat, happy about it because there's no going back, right? They can't really change that after the fact. While the detransitioner doesn't have that same motivation. You know, well, I mean, I guess they do, but like they've kind of uh, either A, gotten past that, or like B, um, like somehow like overcome that. It was a non-factor for some reason.
They were there, and then they did the thing that is the hardest for all of them to do. They
Aren't they
admitted.
equally irreversible?
What does that mean?
So a detransitioner then would have also made an irreversible decision?
Right, but the detransitioner has admitted that they regret it. Right? So where's the motivation for self-deception in that? What could be the motivation? The detransitioner is kidding themselves. They don't really regret it. They're actually really happy. They're just deceiving themselves into thinking that they regret it. It makes no sense. There's no motivation there. But the person who has transitioned, she is powerfully psychologically motivated to convince herself that it was the right decision because she lost her breasts. She can't have kids. She's got no reproductive organs. She's altered her body in a way that cannot be taken back. Of course, there's a psychological motivation there to deceive yourself that does not exist in the detrans community. The detrans community have extricated themselves from that. They've admitted, I made a mistake. It's really hard. It's really hard to admit that you made a mistake, right?
Is it possible if you say you've made a mistake, then that makes it really hard to admit that you didn't make a mistake? I mean, I'm trying to evaluate the
to yourself. I'm talking to yourself. So if a detrans, okay, let's do a hypothetical. A detrans, a young, she's 15. She gets immediately affirmed. She has a breast cut off. She loses her reproductive organs and she's been on testosterone. She gets to the normal age for detransition is like 24, 25 when the brain finishes maturing. So she gets there and she's like 25 years old. She realizes, oh my God, I made a terrible mistake. I'm not a boy at all. I was just caught up in something crazy. And she detransitions. Okay. Now, the hardest part for her on the inside is going to be that moment when she's 24, 25 and her brain finishes maturing and she has to admit to herself, I regret this. I made a mistake. All the detransitioners tell me that. So she detransitions and she's living now with her regret and with her misery. What's stopping her if she realizes, oh, actually, I am a boy after all. I am a man. There's nothing stopping her. There's no difficult. If she decides that she really is a boy at age 25 after she's detransitioned, it's easy. She just has to go back to pretending that she's a boy. There's no. It's an imbalance. It's a huge imbalance, right? Like the mistake of, oh, I detransitioned by mistake. It's no big deal. Just go back to living as a man. But the mistake of realizing, admitting to yourself that you made a mistake, that you are not a man, you've lost all of the body parts and everything because you thought you were a man, that's the most difficult part. And I can understand the psychological motivation not to allow that to happen. I was telling Pierce this the other day. This is a very trivial example, but honestly, I think this is it makes sense in my mind. So in 2023, this is the year of the great highlighting disaster. I thought it would be a good idea to get blonde highlights. And I'm in the chair, and he dries my hair, and I hate it. I hate it instantly. But I've got blonde highlights; they're permanent. There's nothing I can do, and I don't want to fry my hair by having more color put on. So for about 6 months, I pretend internally that it's not that bad. I keep looking in the mirror. Oh, it's not that bad. I don't mind it. It's awful. And then I got my hair dyed my natural color, and the moment I did, I let myself admit that I hated those highlights and they were awful. And now I look at pictures of myself with those highlights and I think, Christ almighty, how could I ever have convinced myself that that looked good? But I
It probably wasn't that bad. I don't know. Okay. Anyways,
did, because it felt like I couldn't do anything about it. And I was trying to make the best of a bad decision.
Is it possible for somebody to get those blonde highlights, hate them, and be honest about it?
I mean, I was briefly honest. When he first dried my hair, I was horrified. Oh, what have I done? This is terrible. Why would I have done this? Some people, yeah, would maybe have the courage to say, or maybe have it in them to say, I tried to convince myself that it wasn't so bad for about 6 months.
Okay. So again, if I'm talking,
I'm just gonna interrupt for a minute here. So I want to go back up here. The detrans angle is the same sort of thing that homophobic people weaponize when gay people were starting to be more accepted in society. People claimed to be cured of being gay, and they were ex-gay, whatever. The ex-gays were used in the exact way as a homophobic talking point. And I mean, that's probably true. I don't know that I've witnessed that, but I'll believe it. That's totally believable. That probably did happen, right? I could see some mega church person using that talking point, right? The difference in this situation is this person who is a ex-gay, whatever that means. I don't think that's a good term. But anyways, like whatever that person, like they're in a straight relationship now apparently, and they were in homosexual relationships previously. The difference is like no harm, no foul, really. Like they had sex with other men. Okay. Now they're having sex with a woman. Okay. That's they're not harmed, right? That's it. Like the difference is that these if there is a mistake, if if someone's mistaken about being gay, which I don't know about that, but let's just say it was. There's no harm. They're not hurt. But if someone's mistaken about being trans, the stakes are quite a bit higher. All right. If they're mistaken, it could be life altering. So I just wanted to show that and give my comment there. Let's continue on.
with someone who has blonde highlights, hates it, and is lying about it, and I'm talking to another person who has blonde highlights, hates it, is honest about it, right? How could I tell?
Oh, you can't. And I'm not saying I can either. To
Yeah.
be clear, I'm not saying I can tell. When I encounter people who say they're happy with their transition, I can't tell them that they're not. And I can't tell if they're lying to themselves. But what I can tell, what I can know is that we have that powerful psychological motivation. There are tons of studies to back up what I'm talking about. I'm not just pulling this out of my mind. Like there are plenty of studies, the power of self-justification, the sunk cost fallacy. It's all there. We have that motivation. And
But how can I tell if somebody is lying out of that motivation or if they're really?
it's impossible to tell. It's impossible to tell.
So what percentage do you think are really happy?
Oh, I couldn't put a
40%,
number on it.
90%?
I couldn't put a number on it. I've made a prediction many times that I think the social contagion kids. So if you look at the graph of the social contagion that happened 2014, 2015, I've made a prediction that the graphs in like 10 years or so from now will look a lot like the detransition graphs will look exactly like the social contagion graphs, because none of these kids should have been transitioned. It's wrong for all of them. So I've
So
made that's my prediction,
if
but
we get to
it's
that
just
point and your prediction doesn't come true,
then I'll be happy. You see, that's what I'm
what?
saying. I want to be wrong. I really hope that all of those social contagion kids are living their best life with all their missing body parts, and all their friends are having kids around them and they have no fertility, and they're like, yes, I'm so glad I sacrificed my fertility. But again, we already have science to show that there's massive fertility regret. Like, even the gender affirming clinicians who did this to the kids have had to admit that, oh my God, there's an awful lot of fertility regret, because that's what the science is showing. So there's already early warning signs that sadly I'm not wrong, but God, I would love to be wrong.
All right. Well, that seems like a good place to wrap it up.
I would love to be wrong. There we go.
Indeed. Cool. Well, thank you, Mia. I'm glad you're willing to spend some time thinking about this stuff. And yeah, any final words?
Oh, I'm thank you. It's we disagree, but I think it's good for me to speak. Very few people who disagree with me will ever talk to me, and that's part of the reason why it's so difficult for me to explain things in a way that in a different way to I normally would, because I'm always coming up against people who are like, I'm always talking to people who agree with me. So I really appreciate
Yeah.
that you engaged with me, even though you strongly disagree, I suspect.
How do you think your beliefs may or may not change if you had a more balanced group of people that you talked with, in terms of people who agree and people who disagree?
Oh, well, okay. I mean, I may not come across as being this type of person, but I genuinely try to think in everything I say and everything I write and all that I do. I try to always keep in mind those caught up in this, those for whom a transgender identity is very important, very real, and really means something to them, and it's one of the most important aspects of their life, because I know that there are a lot of people who very passionately believe this, and therefore that helps me understand why they hate me so much, and it helps me understand it helps me remain as measured as possible in everything I say. Sometimes I can say really outrageous things and it upsets them. But I always try to keep the human element. And it helps that I know a whole ton of kids that are sucked into this. So I picture the real kids that I know. I think it would help me have a more human element. It would help me be more compassionate. And it maybe would make me. I can't. You see, I think I maybe haven't explained myself very well in why I am opposed to this medical treatment. Though I think you think it's because I think no one is happy, and that's not true at all. I oppose it because it's not medicine. You know.
I think you believe that you're helping, and I believe that you are coming from what you believe is an altruistic place. We disagree on that, but we know that.
Right. I am. I genuinely am coming from, I want the best for people who at this time and in this place identify themselves as transgender. I do. And I think right now they are being failed catastrophically. And I would love to be wrong about that, as I've said. If trans identified people were to interact with me more, I would have a better understanding. But the thing is, I spend so much time reading their words, listening to what they say, that I don't know that interacting with them individually would actually change that much, because I do spend a lot of time trying as best I can to understand this group of people. And there's a lot out there that you can read and that you can learn. It would just be nice to actually talk to them so they could understand my point of view, rather than just thinking that I'm hateful and that I want them dead, which is not true at all.
All right. Cool. I feel like I keep trying to wrap it up, and then you say something that causes me to have more questions. So maybe we should.
We could go on all night, and I've got to go and do my expedition into the snowy winter.
Yeah.
Well, it's a disgusting slushy mess out there. It's
I
not
hope
picturesque and gorgeous winter wonderland.
I hope your disgusting slushy adventure goes really well.
Thank you.
The book proposal is a success.
I hope so too.
Cool.
It was lovely to see you again, and it'd be nice to do this again when it's good for me to be challenged. If you're up for another conversation, I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, possibly so.
Okay. Should
All
I
right.
just leave?
I'll end the Zoom, and that'll
Okay, I'm ending it there. There's like 5 seconds left. I think that was pretty good. I've been interacting with both Nick and Mia separately, and it's interesting their comments about this. Both of them were a little like hesitant about this. Neither one of them were like, this was the best ever. So it's interesting. Like I think it was fairly good. I think both Mia and Nick could have been a little bit more. I think they talked past each other a little bit. So that wasn't the best. It could have been better in that sense. I think if they would have been on the same page a little bit more often, could have got somewhere a little bit quicker, you know. But I'm gonna look at a few of these comments here. And Nitty, I'm assuming that question's for me. I don't know what that is. So there's your answer. And I really want to talk about this. She has compassion for all the wrong people that can't see how much evidence and science she has in her favor. Trust her, bro. So I'm going to break this down a little bit. So I think what is being said here is she has compassion for the wrong people. So she has compassion for these people, but not these people. From what she said, I didn't get that. I don't think that is the case. I think that's false. I think what you're saying is basically she doesn't have compassion for people who identify as trans. I believe that is what this statement is getting at. And yeah, I think you're wrong. I think she does have compassion for those people. I think that she does want what is best for those people. And I think that you disagree with her on what is best. But what does that have to do with compassion? Nothing. Like, let's. You wanted to talk about, like, homosexual people, gay people, right? Before you brought that up as an example. So we have this preacher, and he's one of those preachers that's like, I have compassion for everyone. I love everybody, but I want gay people to go in heaven. So I'd really like you to just not be gay, and I think that's what's best for you, right? me viewing that pastor, preacher, whoever, I think he does have compassion. Right. What's the thing that is in that link that we don't get what is like best, like what makes it sound bad, what makes it what is bad in that preacher example is that there's a disconnect there. Like it's the Bible is the word of God, and all people who are do homosexual acts, go to hell if they don't repent, right? Um, and does believing that make you uncompassionate or the opposite of compassionate? I don't think so. I think that preacher can care just as deeply, just be as deeply compassionate for people who practice same sex. That came out weird. But yeah, I think he can be just as compassionate. He just has this other truth claim that he believes. And applying it to this, to the way he sees the world, I think he can still be compassionate. If he were to get up on that altar and just say, fuck all gay people, you're all going to hell, fuck you all, that wouldn't be compassionate. It would be the same, underlying truth claims, the other beliefs that got him there, but that wouldn't be compassionate. But in the first example, I still think that's compassionate, even if it were resulting in him advocating for banning same-sex marriage, whatever, maybe he wouldn't advocate for that. Who knows? This is my example. But I think that person can still be compassionate, and that's why I believe Mia when she says that she cares about people who identify as transgender, and that she wants what's best for them. And I think she is being honest. Explain it then. You know what? Click the link and explain it. Because I don't know how you can know that. I don't know how any human being could know that. Fake compassion. How can anyone know that someone has fake compassion? Any other interesting comments? Not really. I don't know if I'm going to wait for Taylor's response. He hasn't clicked the link, so maybe he's typing, but I don't want to delay ending the stream just for that. Well, that's all right. All right, I guess without any more any more of me just monologuing. Oh, he did. Did he respond? Yeah. They're not saying those things about the compassion. The gesturing towards compassion is empty rhetoric. They're motivated by a bias, but obviously it doesn't sound good to say that. So you're saying that Mia has come to her conclusion because she is uncompassionate. The link in the description, and it's the first comment or first chat. But just go to the description. I think it's in the description. It should be there. The StreamYard link. So you're saying that her reasoning is lack of compassion. Her stance on things related to trans topics is because of lack of compassion. So everything she said previously was just, it didn't sound good. So just paste it here. she knows it wouldn't sound good, so it's actually the real reason is a lack of compassion. I mean, how do you get that? How do you know that? You know, I mean, I'll give you that like that is a possibility. Is it the? Is it the reason? Is that what's actually going on? I don't think so. I've come to a different conclusion. Why do we disagree? It could be the case that she's convinced herself. Yeah, that's possible. Sure. You know, I guess it's just like when Christians say like, there's no atheists. Everybody believes, but they just, you know, they just don't want to. They're just lying to themselves. You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think you're mistaken. I think she is genuine. That's what I think. I'd like to see comparisons or data of who gets gender-affirming care and if they end up with a GRS. What's GRS syndrome? What's GRS? Gender reassignment surgery. I should have known that. I'd like to see comparisons data of who get gender care and if they end up with a GRS. Yeah, I'd be interested. I don't know. I don't. Hopefully, there's data on that. I wonder if there would be data on that. That'd be interesting. All right. Well, without further rambling, I'm gonna end it. See you guys.
If you've watched this far, you know what to do. Don't miss what's next. The choice is on you. Stay in the loop, keep your feet in line. Hit that bell, catch me live next time. It's simple, it's quick, but it means a lot. Stay connected, see the moves I've got. No promises, no fluff, just what's real. Subscribe and the updates seal the deal. Subscribe, hit the bell and I'll see you. The stream's done now, but the content won't stop. So stay in the loop till I'm back at the top.